All right, welcome to the Dynasty Playbook, Dynasty FS dedicated podcast. I'm your host, Drew. You can find me on Reddit, the AF Marine, and on Twitter at DrewDawsonNFL. With me are my excellent co-hosts, Tyler and Scott. You can find Tyler on Reddit at Barles and on Twitter at HBomb9508. Scott, you can find on Reddit at Stewie, and you're going to be looking a long time if you're trying to find him on Twitter because he's not on there. Well, looks like we got the band back together for one last show. After 2 weeks of playing solo games, we're back together. So let's get to partying. Start off with our college player discussion for the week, and I wanted to come back and touch back on a running back that Dave and I did early on the show, back on episode number 2. Amir Abdullah, senior running back out of Nebraska. So why don't you guys tell me what you have to say about him?
All right, so Abdullah, the first thing that popped out to me on Abdullah is the dude runs hard, man. I mean, this guy gets after it, and the thing that I like most about Abdullah is the first hole that he sees, he hits it. He gets up in the hole, and he doesn't dance around, he doesn't play around, he doesn't try to bounce. He gets what's given. He falls forward really well. He's really, really good at like the second and third level. You know, once he gets ahead of steam, a guy tries to hit him on the thighs, they're going to have a tough time bringing him down. The Iowa game that I watched, that was probably the most telling tape that I watched on Abdullah, and he really struggled there. They stacked the box, they met him in the hole. He's not great at bouncing off the first tackle. So I think he's a really nice play, but I'm not sure that he's going to profile really well as a lead back or a three-down workhorse for his NFL team. A lot of that's due to his size and his inability to, break the first tackle and get through to the next level if there's not a big hole there.
Yeah, I have a lot of the same notes. Basically, I have that he's got some decent vision, not great. Like you said, he's not looking for the best hole on the play. He's looking for a hole, and when he finds it, he definitely hits it, which is good. He leans forward a lot. I saw a lot of falling forward, even on plays where he's getting hit in the backfield. He tries to still fall forward, which was good. Great open field speed. I could see him working a lot in a screen game in the NFL. A team like the Eagles that might run a lot of screens or a lot of little dump off passes, although they're a little bit overloaded at running back right now. I could definitely see him playing a third down or catching back role. I could see him continuing to return kicks. He looked pretty good doing that. Open field vision and that speed, man, he's got lots of speed. So when he gets out in the open, he can make guys miss. He can just run away from players. I thought that he was really good, like I said, in the open field. But when he got down to the goal line, it didn't seem like the team liked to give him the ball that much. And when they did, it didn't seem like he would get that much, whether he was trying to score or trying to get the ball off their own goal line. So that's where I think his weaknesses are.
Yeah, I think a lot of that has to do with just his strength, and which kind of comes back to his size in general, and that he's not going to be that short yardage plotter. But I think in the passing game, he's going to be a tremendous weapon. I think that open field vision plays huge into that. He's got really quick feet, which I think is the reason he's so quick to go to that first read in terms of finding the hole instead of finding the best hole. He's going to find that first hole because he knows he can get to it quick. Overall, I really like what I saw out of Abdullah. He's not the top running back out of the class or anything, but overall he's fairly impressive. He's definitely going to earn some playing time in the NFL, and I could easily see him being a fantasy RB2 for a pretty significant amount of time, just based off his work in the passing game. If he can mature and advance to the point where he can get some legitimate between the tackles work, then I don't see why he's not an every week starter for you. Anything else you guys want to tack onto that, or?
No, I think we hit all the points I had written down on him.
What about you, old man? You got anything? Pretty sure he's dead.
Yeah, he passed on.
That's unfortunate. Rest in peace. In peace. So I guess we can... Oh, looks like he actually did die. That is quite unfortunate. I guess
And awkward now.
I guess we can move on to our next prospect, and that is Kenny Bell, who's a senior wide receiver also out of Nebraska. This guy will be 23 at the start of the 2015 season. I wasn't terribly impressed watching the tape on him. He didn't do anything extremely wrong. He had a couple of costly drops, which was sort of a turnoff for me, but he also made some fairly impressive catches. He showed that he had some good hands. He could high point the ball, but I wasn't overly impressed. I just don't see a lot of upside in drafting him. I think, even if he hits, he's probably going to be, wide receiver 3 on somebody's NFL team, which isn't really a recipe for fantasy success. What do you think,
Yeah, my biggest takeaway was the drops. There wasn't an abundance of drops, but it seemed to be like a roll that he would get on at times. It would happen 3 or 4 at a time. And for me, I mean, catching is the number one thing for a wide receiver. Obviously, that's his job. His job is to catch the ball. So seeing that, I probably personally will not draft him, but he did have a lot of good things about him. I thought he ran lots of routes. He was good at getting off the ball, whether there was a defender pressing him or a defender a little bit off. He was able to create space, and he high-pointed the ball really well. There was a couple really nice catches, jump balls, just him and the receiver, him and the defender that he went up and got after. So lots of good things you saw from him. I thought he did run a pretty good variety of routes, and he seemed to know the routes pretty well as well. Just for me, the drops are a little bit more than I'd like to see out of a receiver, seeing as that's his main job and his one job, if you know what I mean. So the drops are just going to keep me away from drafting this guy, but doesn't mean that he's terrible. I do think he'll find a place on an NFL roster. I just don't think that he'll be a very big fantasy contributor for a few years now.
Yeah, I'm going to side with you fairly close to that, in that there are a lot of impressive aspects to his game. He showed good body control. He had fairly good vision in terms of tracking the ball. It's just the drops are killer. I hated it with Kelvin Benjamin, and it's just one of those things that it's going to hurt you trying to stay on the field in the NFL, and it's going to hurt you in terms of putting up fantasy numbers. And I'm not really all that interested. It looks like Tyler is still missing from our cavalcade of adventure and fun, but I guess we can go ahead and move on to our next subject, and hopefully he rejoins us. Our next topic of discussion will be our rankings for rookie running backs out of this 2015 class. I kind of wanted to touch on who our top 10 are. For right now, we'll assume that all of Tyler's top 10 are all Le'Veon Bell, because he doesn't want to show up and talk to us. So I'll let you start us off.
Oh, I thought he had DeMarco Murray at the top. I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else. Well, I'll just go ahead and go with my top 5 first, and I guess we can discuss it from there. Obviously, at the top, in my opinion, I got Gurley at the very top. I think he's still a decent amount above Gordon, although Gordon's a very talented target, and Gordon's right underneath that. And then a big drop from there to everybody else. Third, I have Jay Ajayi. Fourth, I have Duke Johnson. And fifth, I actually have David Cobb, who a lot of people have not been very impressed with.
All right, and it looks like our buddy's back. How was the afterlife?
It was awesome. Isn't that the way it goes? We sit here and BS for 45 minutes, and then we go live, and it immediately takes a crap on me. So my apologies.
It's all good. We decided we didn't want to hear what you had to say about Kenny Bell, so we skipped that and just decided to say what we want to say. But so we're gonna go ahead and move on to what are your first top 5 rookie running backs in this class?
My top 5, Gurley Gordon, Gurley, and then somewhat of a big drop for me from Gurley to Gordon. And I got Ajay, Duke Johnson, uh, and then 4 and 5. I like Yeldon and I like David Johnson. I don't know who I like better. I think I like David Johnson a little bit better, but both of those guys kind of jumbled up for me there. I can't really find a way to differentiate between the two. So I'm not sure what you guys said, but I'm going to guess we're pretty close on there.
Well, actually, I haven't said mine yet. Mine are essentially identical to yours. Gurley, Gordon, Ajay, and then it's a little clearer Yeldon over David Johnson for me, but David Johnson's my number 5. Now, Scott, I'm interested to hear why you've got Cobb so high.
For me, I mean, just watching the tape, I don't have my notes on Cobb right in front of me here. I liked what he was doing on tape there for Minnesota. It seemed like he was kind of a bright spot for that team. Seemed to have pretty decent vision, and I liked his patience. He wouldn't dance around in the hole or dance around behind the line, but it seemed like he would wait for the hole to open up, and seemed like he had good vision, which is something I feel like you don't see in a lot of running backs coming out of the draft, and something I usually look for a lot in my running backs.
All right, that's fair. And I guess we'll each knock out our last 5. My next 5 are Duke Johnson. I guess the next one will be Amir Abdullah. Then the next ones, unfortunately, I have to pick them eventually, are Tevin Coleman, then David Cobb, and Mike Davis. I'll let you guys, Tyler, I'll let you let us know where you're sitting at, but I imagine yours are looking fairly different from mine.
Yeah, of course I had David Johnson and Yeldon kind of bunched up in there. So I've got Tevin Coleman right after them, then Abdullah, Mike Davis, and for the 10th, I guess Jeremy Langford. Really struggled as I got to the bottom part of this list. I'm admittedly higher on Coleman than you are. He's so bad at breaking tackles. He runs pretty soft, but man, he can bust off a big play. And the dude is just wicked explosive. So I'm going to move him up a little bit higher because of that, and because he's a good pass blocker. I think he's going to get on the field a little bit earlier than some of the guys that I have beneath him. So Coleman, Abdullah. I love Mike Davis, man. Mike Davis just looks like a lunch pail guy to me. He's the kind of guy that I like. And in a PPR back, you know what I'm looking for, a guy who's going to catch a few passes and is going to be on the field. And I think that's what Mike Davis is going to bring to the table. And as far as Jeremy Langford, that's just kind of by default, I suppose, more than anything.
Gotcha. And where did Duke Johnson fit in yours again? I think I missed that.
I had Duke at number 4, right behind Ajay and ahead of Yeldon and David Johnson.
Gotcha. And then you just had David Johnson and Yeldon kind of tied it.
Right.
Gotcha. All right, Scotty.
All right. So my top 5 I already gone off of, so I think I'm going to go with David Johnson at 6 there. Then I have Amir Abdullah, then Tevin Coleman, Yeldon, and I will finish it off with Jeremy Langford.
Wow, you really don't like Yeldon, do you?
I don't. The size bothers me. I've always been I don't know. I don't think he's got it. I don't think that I think he's partially a product of the system too. They always have good blocking, good team all together, so it helps make each player look a little bit better. I think, I don't think he plays as well in the NFL as he did in the NCAA.
That's fair. You're allowed to be wrong.
I mean, of course he doesn't look like a huge guy when behemoth Derrick Henry gets on the field, right?
God. Oh boy, what is he, like 6'4"? He's
He's like Brock
Brandon
Lesnar
Jacobs
size, dude.
size.
The dude is massive. Just massive. All the Devi guys out there are drooling over Derrick Henry right now. They have to be. So many touchdowns coming down the pipe from him.
He's like what people wish Brandon Jacobs was gonna be. Now I guess Jacobs was good for a little bit, but I mean I wasn't huge into fantasy during his quote unquote peak, or if there ever was a peak. Maybe I missed it. Maybe it was just really short.
Like 3 games long.
Yeah, I remember a little bit of a peak, but I was hoping there was more of one before where I missed something. But I think that kind of caps that off. Is there any kind of honorable mentions you guys want to touch on that just missed your top 10?
For me, it was Mike Davis, but we already had Tyler very nicely touch on him, so I don't need to say much about it.
Yeah, I think a couple of guys that the Devi crowd's really kind of in love with is Terrell Watson out of Azusa Pacific and Zach Zenner out of South Dakota State. These are guys that, for one reason or another, are getting a little bit of love. And personal guy that I'm hoping to snag up real late. I mean real late because I don't want to pay anything for him. Is Cameron Artis-Payne, running back out of Auburn, because he's already pretty old. But I liked what I saw of him on the field. His tape didn't look bad at all. Any love? Anybody want to give a shout out to, Tyler?
No, I think you pretty much touched everybody. I mean, there's definitely going to be some deep sleepers. There are every year, but I think we've covered, 12, 15 guys here. Pretty deep class. I mean, not altogether the most impressive class, but the depth is it's going to be a nice infusion to the league. I guess you could say that.
It's a lot more impressive than the classes we've been getting before. These Geo classes where Geo's your number one running back, and then, well, no, I guess Lacey was kind of your number one.
It was Lacey and Geo and Le'Veon.
Jonathan Franklin. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then it got bad, dude. It was those three and Nuke Hopkins, and then it got dirty after that, man. There was so much crap in that class. I mean, Tavon. And, like you said, Jonathan Franklin, and God, I don't even want to think of some of the names that I drafted out of that class. It got so bad.
Franklin, no doubt.
Oh, that was such a bad class. Let's move on. That was such a bad class. Let's move on to some of our subreddit post discussions for the week. This first one is coming from Adam Sticky Z, and it says, "Cough, cough. Question from 5 weeks ago. Cough. Ahem. Where do you guys rank Winston, James Winston, assuming he gets drafted by the Bucks? Top 15, top 20? He comes in with a ton of weapons in Evans, VJax, ASJ, Sims. I'd assume he is abreast of the Dalton line right out of the gate. First off, I'm totally going to agree that he's already past the Dalton line. I don't think there's any question about that. Now, he doesn't specify whether this is ranked among QBs or ranked as a rookie. So I think we can kind of touch on both aspects of this. And I think we'll start off with just as a rookie. Where would you have him ranked? This is one QB leagues, obviously.
So in a 1 QB, man, I hadn't even thought of it from that angle. That's kind of tough. I mean, early to mid-second, right? I mean, I guess he could sneak into the first. I don't really see me taking him in the first, but, I mean, if we're talking about a guy that's drafted number one overall, he's going to be drafted to be a starter, right? He's going to have a very long leash. And assuming he goes to Tampa Bay, that's a pretty good place to land. So I don't want to call it a safe pick, but, if I'm sitting at like 204, And my QB1 is Drew Brees. Yeah, I like Jameis Winston there. So I think that feels about right to me. Scott, what do you think about Winston in a rookie draft?
I do like him. I think that if he goes to the Bucks, that is definitely going to improve his stock. My biggest thing is it would definitely depend on my team situation. If I have a QB needy team, which thanks to last year's deep QB draft class, I don't have a lot of those left anymore. Yeah, I think I could even see myself taking him late first round. Like you said, I mean the weapons are ridiculous. Evans, Jax, ASJ, Charles Sims can even be a nice passing weapon for him. I think they do have a decent amount built around him. My biggest issue would be their offensive line, which they've been working on, but it's not quite where I'd like it yet. So, I mean, I'd definitely say, depending on your need, late first, early second, I'm probably taking him. Is his first spot. This is probably the latest I'm taking him if I'm wanting him in the first place. So right around that 204, 205. I'd say 206 you would be lucky to get him would be my assumption. If you really wanted him, I'm definitely taking him round to make sure no one else gets going really quick after that.
Yeah, I'm not taking him in the late first. Even if I have a needed QB, I could spend like a early third and trade for Joe Flacco or something, and you know make it by. But Flacco hasn't put up terrible numbers. I mean, they're not great, but they're not terrible. But I'd rather not spend a first round pick. There's too many guys I like at the end of the first.
Leave it there.
I would rather he'd be outside of my top 15, but inside of my top 20. It's kind of where I'd be sitting with him. He's going to be a rookie QB. He's going to have a long leash, which means he's going to have plenty of chance to prove himself. But that's still going to limit, he's still going to be a low-level QB. He's still going to have plenty of QBs playing ahead of him that are going to be putting up fantasy numbers. I don't need to pay up a premium to get them when I could trade for any other number of lower-level QBs. I could take advantage of all the Derek Carr hate out there and pay, a low second and go get Derek Carr over paying a late first to get Jameis Winston. Now, in terms of QB rankings, Jameis Winston's ADP in terms of like Ryan McDowell's ADP right now, he is going as a QB1 in terms of dynasty rankings. Am I the only one that thinks that is just the people doing that are hired batshit, or is that just me? Bueller.
Where is he going?
Scott, answer. Tyler's dead.
Where is he going? Where did you say he was going?
Top 12.
Top 12 in QBs? I think that's a bit much. Rookie quarterback, you got to understand there's going to be growing pains. Then there's usually the sophomore slump, when people start to figure out what he's doing. He is a running quarterback a little bit, so you are going to have some injuries. I'm thinking probably 2 if I'm drafting, to start a draft any QBs. Yeah, I'm probably drafting right around the 20-25 range. Definitely not going in my top 12 if it's a 12-team league or even a 6. I don't really trust rookie quarterbacks to do that much for you. It's always sure-handed. You think they are, how sure they are. I mean, I think because we all saw how Ryan Leaf went. So, yeah, I'm just not. I'm not that, but any more than that, no way. I'm not taking him in the top 12. I think 25 is probably a good range for him.
Scott, you still there? Fantastic. Scott, you there?
I am there. It's you, not me.
You're definitely lagging pretty bad, bud.
Wonderful.
And I don't know what happened to Tyler. I'm just glad nobody's trying to watch this live. I'm gonna have a lot of editing to do.
Alrighty. Am I still lagging pretty bad?
No. It looks like your mouth and the sound is looking fairly close to itself.
Alrighty. Well, I don't know what was heard and not heard out of that James Winston comment. I thought I lost you.
No, you lagged like a motherfucker. Like, so bad. It sounded like...
Oh, that's good advice for people then. That's solid. At least they know what I think.
Tyler came in at the perfect time. So I'm gonna edit
Yeah, I
all of
thought you were
that.
having a stroke there. What's going on, buddy? You all right?
That's what Scott sounded like earlier, and I'm gonna edit all of that out. But so Scott, why don't you go ahead and start over on what you said about Jameis Winston?
All right. So as far as him getting drafted ADP top 12 quarterback overall, startup ADP, I think that's way too high. Rookie quarterback, he's a mobile quarterback. That results in injuries. There's a lot of growing pains. There's the sophomore slump. There's a lot that he still has to learn about just being an NFL quarterback and making the reads and the game being faster. There is no such thing as a sure thing. The only time there's ever been a sure thing at quarterback was Andrew Luck, maybe Peyton Manning too. Ryan Leaf sure as hell wasn't a sure thing. You know, there's lots of quarterbacks that bust. Busting is a real thing. Jamarcus Russell wasn't a sure thing. There's lots of guys that don't pan out the way you thought. So him being a top 12 quarterback before ever playing a single snap in the NFL is insane to me. There's no chance. I could see him being 20 to 25, somewhere in that range. Low QB2 as a startup guy that's never played it down. But QB1 is absolutely insane to me.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go as far as to say he should be, QB 20, but definitely not inside QB 12. I would be closer to, probably QB 15, QB 16, the Kaepernick range. I think that'd be closer to fair value for him. I don't see it being a smart call to draft a rookie quarterback in the top 12 when there's guys going as QB2s right now that are going to produce for multiple years ahead, going forward as QB1s that you can get for a bargain. Guys like Rivers, Romo, hell, even Eli Manning. Somebody's got to go throw Odell Beckham the ball. He's going to get some fantasy points for that. I don't see the point in paying that much for Jameis Winston. And I like Winston. I think he's a fine pick, and in 2 QB leagues, it's an entirely different conversation. And we'll have to conversate about that some other time. But I just don't think he should be going as a top 12 QB. And maybe Tyler can be the contrarian voice, but the safe money's probably going to be on him agreeing with us.
Yeah, I mean, I can see both sides of this, but we kind of talked about this QB, projecting QBs earlier this week. So age doesn't play nearly as big a factor in a quarterback as it does the other positions. Peyton Manning just turned 39 this week. Now, granted, he's an anomaly. He's Peyton Manning. It's a different case, but all right. So, a 30-year-old Matt Ryan. Let's assume that he plays 6 more years. Do you know how long 6 years is, especially in dynasty terms? That is a long, long time.
That's a whole running back career.
Right, exactly, and that's why I'm saying, give me some proof before I'm going to invest heavily in a quarterback, right? Unless they're just a world beater, and we've all talked about Andrew Luck. As close to can't miss as there ever was going to be. The dude was pro ready day one, drafted into a situation where he was going to be the man from day one, and he's performed to that level. But like I'm, looking at the ADPs, and you're seeing Teddy Bridgewater as QB6, and I'm not saying Teddy Bridgewater's not QB6, but I'm not spending a top 100 startup pick on Teddy Bridgewater, and I think a lot of that kind of, is the same thing with Jameis Winston. But like Scott said, if you have a QB needy team, and you have a bunch of draft picks, I don't see anything wrong with spending a second rounder on Jameis, getting it on the ground floor, so to speak. I mean, because if he blows up, boy, you just got him for, nothing comparatively. So, can I buy him as a top 15 quarterback? Yeah, okay. I guess we can put him in there, like you said, in the Kaepernick range, in that area. And I'm also like you, Drew, in that I'm just not really hip to heavily investing in a quarterback who's never even taken a snap, when quarterback longevity it's a real thing. And these guys play forever and ever and ever. And once a guy like Flacco or Rivers, or like you said, Eli is entrenched as a starter, they're pretty much going to be the starter until they retire or just get hella old and somebody bumps them out. But that's my take on quarterback. I want to see something before I'm going to invest. And typically I'm not going to invest very much anyway. So the pool's just too deep for me to go throwing a bunch of capital around in a 12-team league that starts one quarterback per team. It's just unnecessary.
Yeah, when you find these quarterbacks play forever. Look at Carson Palmer. He hasn't even stuck around on the same team, and he's still, because he's at a certain talent threshold, he's finding the team to start with somewhere. And he's going to get you fantasy points. Carson Palmer doesn't cost you anything at all. In one QB league, he doesn't cost you shit, and he can be a legitimate starter for you. You're not going to be excited about having him as your starter, but he's not a bad position to be in either. I'd much rather have Carson Palmer as my starter QB than, someone who's the equivalent of Carson Palmer's ADP at wide receiver or running back. That's why late round QB is such a legitimate option even in Dynasty.
Yeah, it's a real thing, and it's not an accident. That many people can't be wrong. There are some geniuses out there that do Dynasty football and write about Dynasty and think about Dynasty, and these theories or these build preferences or whatever term you want to use to describe their strategy, it doesn't just happen. So if you're not getting to Andrew Luck or Aaron Rodgers, Cam Newton, Russell Wilson, man, I'm waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And then I'll just grab whatever QB is going to be around, because those guys that did draft QBs early, they're not going to come back and pick up their backup, before you're ready to get, a Rivers, Romo, Eli, a guy like that. So, yeah, like I said, waiting on quarterback is a viable strategy. I get the other side of it. I've got teams with crappy quarterbacks. I've got teams with Aaron Rodgers. It goes both ways. But it's all about what price do you have to pay for them. And if you're paying, like I said, top 100 startup picks, there's only a handful of quarterbacks that I'm willing to pay that for.
Yeah, I think that pretty much puts a nail in that coffin. Let's move on to our next question from 776ET, which is, which defensive player should be the first one taken in the Dynasty rookie draft? So it's time to dig into our old IDP satchel and time to play around. We don't get to talk IDP that often, but I figure let's start off with you, Tyler. I know you. I guess let's not start off with Tyler because you left again. So, I think the biggest issue with trying to assess IDP right now is the fact that most of your key defensive players in this draft are going to be pass rushers. It's Bud Dupree, Dante Fowler, Shane Ray, who I'm not particularly a big fan of, Vic Beasley. These are guys that we don't know their position yet. They're either going to play outside linebacker or they're going to play defensive end in a 4-3. So trying to assess their value, it's going to be vastly different depending on what position they're in. If they're playing defensive end, they're almost guaranteed to be the 101 unless they're Shane Ray, and I'm not touching them. Or they're going to be a linebacker, and then they just fall right into the crowd. Now, Tyler, you're back. I'm going to let you kind of expand on who you like and who you don't like now that I've kind of given us the basic premise of the positional issue. All right, I guess not. So, I guess Tyler's dead, so that's not happening. Scott, what are your are there any IDP guys in this draft you're interested in?
So, I mean, like you said, usually most leagues are going to kind of lean towards the guys making the pass rushing, the guys doing the sacking and making a lot of big plays. Big play seems to be an easier position to predict than the tackle position. Someone you're not sure. So like you said, D-line is always a good one to look at. You look for edge rushers that might get put in a 3-4 position. You already named a couple of those guys off, such as Vic Beasley and Dante Fowler. But really, for me, I try and look for inside linebackers that are going to rack up a lot of tackles. I look for guys that I think are going to just be like a Luke Kuechly or a Levante David that are going to be getting 10, 15 tackles a game, which is hard to predict. Still, once again, he's got to make the team as an inside linebacker, and then on top of that, he has to get the starting position. Any sort of backup isn't going to be good enough. Doesn't matter if he's the second guy and they rotate him in a lot. You're not going to get the numbers that you're looking for. So with that being said, I'm probably not drafting anybody. If I'm doing a pre-NFL draft, rookie draft, I'm probably not drafting any defensive players until late in that rookie draft, 4th round, 5th round. But if we find out where some of these guys go, and maybe Vic Beasley or Dante Fowler go to a team that is looking for a pass rusher 3-4 team, then I'm definitely going to be looking to take one of those guys if I think they're going to be used pretty well as their pass rusher. If not, linebacker that I'm looking at, Kendrick's brother, linebacker out of UCLA, though, I think it's like Evan or Earl Kendricks or something like that. Let's see, I think I have it here. Eric Kendricks, there it is. So that's someone that I'm really looking forward to. It seems like he can make plays all over the field, and seems like he could probably start for a team at the inside linebacker position. Team like Denver could really use one. So I mean, I think that would be good for a late round pickup in a rookie draft if you're looking for some help at linebacker or just anywhere on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and normally I'm right there with you that I'd stick with the inside linebackers, even in your big play leagues. It's just there's no one in this class that strikes me as that inside linebacker that I'm dying to own. Kendricks is he seems like a good football player, and I think Tyler put it best when he says that he's worried he's just not gonna be on the field all the time. He might end up being a better football player than an IDP play. McKinney's also an option, but I'm just not particularly excited about his talent. He's no C.J. Mosley, he's no Ryan Shazier. He's going to get you middling tackling numbers at best, and I'm just not that excited about him. I'd rather have whichever whichever pass rusher is gonna end up slotting in at defensive end, whether it be Dupree or I'm not exactly. I don't think Vic Visa is going to fit in well as a defensive end. I think he slots in purely as a 3-4 outside linebacker. I love Fowler's defensive end. If he gets slotted as a defensive end, he's my 101 IDP pick. Leonard Williams, if you have a defensive line flex league, I really like him. Now, I don't know if Tyler's rejoined us or not. If he has, I'd like to get him to kind of fill in a little bit on what his thoughts are.
All right, so yeah, and I apologize. I don't know what's going on, but if I lose connection again, I'm going to throw my laptop out the window, and I'll just have to see you guys next week because it's getting under my skin a little bit. So we're on the IDP. For me, I think I just barely heard what Drew was saying about the pass rushers. I'm going to go ahead and assume that I agree with him in that whichever one of these edge guys lands in a 4-3, there's your 101. If Leonard Williams lands as a 3-4 defensive end, I can see that. I mean, Muhammad Wilkerson's been super productive as a 3-4 defensive end. Sheldon Richardson hadn't been bad. There's this guy. I'm not sure if you heard of him, named J.J. Watt.
He's pretty good, isn't he?
He's okay. He plays as a 3-4 defensive end. So I'm not calling Leonard Williams J.J. Watt, but I could see that if you're in a league that requires defensive tackles, or you get like a massive scoring boost to defensive tackles, Leonard Williams lands at DT. There's your 101. For me, Dante Fowler is the most true, like hand in the dirt 4-3 defensive end to me. That would be the ideal situation for me as he goes to a 4-3. It's a slam dunk 101 for me.
Completely agree.
I'm not sure if you talked about Kendricks versus Dawson or not. I'll assume you did.
Didn't bring up Dawson. We didn't
bring up Dawson, though. So Paul Dawson is a really, really good football player. He's a terrible athlete. The thing about Dawson that I love watching Dawson tape, especially versus the run, and it's something that I pay a lot of attention to, is that first step. What's the linebacker doing on his first step? Because it's crucial. How fast can they break down the play? How fast can they get downhill? And Dawson gets downhill as well as anybody. He gets to the line of scrimmage super fast. He's got a nose for the ball, but he's coming off the field on third down, folks. Unless he just has some crazy athletic transformation in between now and September, he's not a 3-down linebacker. I think he's a better football player than Eric Kendricks, but I think Eric Kendricks is probably going to be a better IDP play. Shaq Thompson, I love Shaq Thompson. Shaq Thompson can land in a 4-3 as a weak outside linebacker, which is where I think he probably will land. He's going to be the guy that I'm gonna be looking to acquire. Possibly even before Kendricks. Shaq Thompson, he's small as far as weight. He's not the biggest guy, but I mean, this dude's got a high motor and he's a tremendous athlete. So I would love to see Shaq Thompson as a will in a 4-3, and I would definitely like to get me some shares of him, much like I did Telvin Smith last year. I don't know if they're a great comp as football players, but same concerns that we had about Telvin Smith this time last year, the same things we're saying about Shaq Thompson. And if you invested in Telvin Smith last year, you are stoked because he was practically free, and that dude's a baller.
That dude was practically free until the preseason. With Shaq, I'm more concerned that his IDP scoring is going to be too reliant on the big play, but those concerns might be completely unfounded. I did want to touch on one more thing before I moved on. In terms of safeties, outside of Landon Collins, is there anybody you're even looking at?
I like Cody Pruitt. Cody Pruitt's a sledgehammer.
That's right.
And the rookie mocks I'm seeing, I've actually done a couple of just rookie IDP mocks this week. And Cody Pruitt's going like fourth round, almost as an afterthought. And those are the guys, I love them when they're cheap, cheap, cheap. Because if they hit, man, what a great return on your investment. And if they don't hit, who gives a crap? Cut them, move on. Because you can find a DB on the wire at all times. But Cody Pruitt's a guy that I'm really high on. Obviously, it's the Landon Collins show, as far as who's the number one defensive back. And that's about as big of a gap as I can remember as far as the rookies coming in. I mean, it's Landon Collins, and then it's a long drop to number 2. But Pruitt, go.
Yeah, Pruitt's definitely a guy I gotta spend some time with too. But this was fun. I miss hitting up on some IDP stuff. I think we can move on to our next question, which is coming from Losing Friends, which is, what's your take on Josh Huff? Do you see him taking over the Jeremy Maclin role in the Philly offense? What do you think, boss?
I like Josh Huff, and I'm going back to watching him at Oregon and what Chip Kelly did with Josh Huff. He was pretty creative, finding ways to get him the ball. I'm not going to go as far as to say he's going to take over the Jeremy Maclin role. We've said it before. I'm not a big Jeremy Maclin fan, but I'm not sure that Huff is really a true X receiver. I don't think that he is. I do think that he's, assuming the Philly doesn't go make any more moves, bringing in a receiver other than Miles Austin, which who cares? Huff is in for an uptick in touches. They're gonna find ways to give him the ball. I guess I'm having trouble finding my words right now. I think they're gonna find ways to get him the ball. They're gonna try to get him involved in the screen game. I could see him coming into the backfield some, maybe some jet sweeps, reverses, things like that. So Josh Huff at his current price is the kind of guy that I want to buy. You could probably go trade for him for next to nothing. Him deep. So why not? I mean, take a speculative run at a guy in a high-powered offense who's playing for his old college coach, and that's not an accident either. I mean, Chip wanted the guy, he got the guy. Chip was around him for several years and said, I like this kid. So, that's, to me, is enough for me to go take a run at him, especially at his price.
Yeah, I mean, they spent a top 100 pick on this guy. That's not just nothing. They put some serious capital into him, and I don't think they're just going to let that fall away by the wayside. I don't know. Like you said, he's going to follow, copy the Jeremy Maclin role, but I don't think he's going to have to. I think they're going to manufacture touches for him however they have to, and I think they're going to utilize the speed. I think they're going to utilize his size, and I think he's going to be a legitimate wide receiver, a fantasy wide receiver. I don't know to what extent he's going to be, but he's definitely somebody I'm interested in owning. If I can get him right around that top 100 value, ADP in terms of ADP wise, I'm doing it because that's as good a chance to increase in value as anyone else in that range. And I think having Jordan Matthews right there with him is only going to help him. We all know how much you like Jordan Matthews.
Yeah, I kind of like Jordan Matthews. Not quite at 100% ownage on JMAT, but pretty close. And I'm also super excited about it. I saw Evan Silva had him ranked as the number 30 redraft play for next year, which seems pretty freaking high to me. But the fact that someone that is whose opinion I respect that much has him ranked that highly has got me pretty excited. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah, I've definitely been seeing the Cooks hype around, so I know the excitement you're feeling. And I think with that, we can move on to our last question for the night. This is coming from Brad227. What is your valuation of players like Keenan Allen and Martavis Bryant? Where should they go in startups? What is their trade value now, and what is their outlook? I'm not entirely sure if he's trying to relate the two in terms of any particular comp, or if he just wants us to talk about those two specific players. Starting off Keenan Allen, I still love Keenan Allen. I loved him last year. I loved him this year. I loved him as a rookie. I wish he'd come to my house and be my best friend. We could hang out. It would be awesome. He could play with my dogs. I think Keenan Allen should still be going in the third in startups. He throw in the rookies, he probably drops to late third. Trade value, I think he slots in probably right around the 104. And in terms of their outlook, it can only be positive going from here. I think we've seen what his floor is, and it's not getting a lot of touchdowns, even though you're getting targeted a lot. And it's a sophomore slump. I feel like he's got a lot of room to go up. We've seen what he's capable of, and it's pretty damn impressive.
Yeah, I feel you on Keenan. Keenan's, like I said, I think he's a third round. I think we're probably talking about a top 35 to me. I don't have my rankings in front of me, but that feels about right for me. I own a lot of spots. I'm definitely not looking to sell him. Why would I look to sell him at what is his perceived low? Because that's right now he's in a, I like to call it a value dead zone. He's in a dead zone. Nobody's going to come out there and pay too much for him, and I'm not really hip to moving a guy like that for draft picks, because why? He's still young. He's still the number one for his team. He's a target monster. I love target monsters. Keenan Allen, if he doesn't best his 20%, so surprised. At both in catches, yards, yak, everything. I think he beats him across the board. Martavis Bryant is a little bit different for me. I was actually in a conversation with someone last night about Martavis Bryant, and I'm not trying to draw direct comps in between players, because I really don't like to do that, but it kind of smells like Cordell Patterson, Justin Hunter a little bit to me. Situation eerily similar. We're talking about guys that had big points on low numbers of target and his palatable to me. I've seen him go, and if I could be way off base here, but I seem to remember him going in my last startup in the third or fourth round, and that's just too high for me. Yeah, he came on at the end of the year and pushed Wheaton out of the way, but up to that point, he was still splitting snaps with Marcus Wheaton. And, he didn't even get on the field for the first few weeks, which makes me a little bit nervous. He didn't have that great a pedigree coming out of Clemson. Of course, we know the two guys that he played with, they were pretty good. So he obviously wasn't going to be the number one in that offense. But Martavis scares me. If I own him, I am aggressively shopping him right now, because I think he'll bring a pretty good return. And I'm afraid it's going to be one of those situations where if you don't sell him now, you miss the boat. And you're sitting here this time next year with a grenade in your hand and the pin's pulled, and you got a problem, and you're sitting on Cordell Patterson that you can't get rid of. So that's where I'm at on those two guys. They're two totally different plays for me, but I get where we're drawing comparison in value, because they're both being valued very similarly right now. Whereas Keenan's value's in a trough, Martavis's is at a peak. I'm holding Keenan, I'm selling Martavis.
Yep, and we're at the exact same spot on Martavis with slightly different mind frames, similar value. I think right now he's probably going right around fourth, maybe early fifth in startups, which to me is too high. I think people are probably cooking way too much of his potential improvement into his value already. Because as it stands right now, he's a big play wide receiver that his fantasy output is entirely too reliant on touchdowns. He had, I want to say, more than 50% of his fantasy output was touchdown numbers. If he can improve in terms of his route running and his usage in the offense, I have no doubt he can be a useful fantasy target. But I just don't see that being a smart investment, that you're putting this much into him in hopes that he expands this whole entire side of his game. that he hasn't up until this point. And it's not like he's, this spring chicken. He's not Keenan Allen. I mean, he's not Keenan Allen. He's not Sammy Watkins. He's not Brandon Cooks. He's not 21 years old. He's been playing for a minute, and he's still fairly limited in his usage because of how his game is. So I would be trying to sell Martavis Bryant, not because I don't think he'll ever get better, but I think because it's the safer play in terms of, where, if you've got a stock market portfolio, it's probably safer to sell him at this point.
Where would you take him in this draft in terms of wide receivers, Drew? Would you take him? Let's say, obviously, we're going to take him after White and Cooper. Would you take him ahead of Strong, Parker, Aguilar? Where would you slot him in there?
Oh God.
Curveball.
Oh shit. I like Aguilar on a non-rational level, so I couldn't take him over him. I'm warming to Parker. I think they're about a wash for me right now, though. I'd take DGB over him, and I'd take Strong over him. So he would probably be a late first for me in this class.
I feel you there. And I really do think that if you own Martavis and you put him on the block, you can get a mid to late first and some change. I really do.
Absolutely.
I mean, and so let's be honest, Drew and I are two of the biggest proponents you'll see of speculating. I mean, I'm willing to take on an asset that may take a crap, okay? I'm willing to take a gamble on an asset that could just fall off the face of the earth. But the flip side of that is that asset could spike and could just go, boom, huge, a la Brandon Cooks, Mike Evans. And not necessarily spike in terms of I'm going to trade him, but spike it, hey, I'm going to have this guy plugged into my wide receiver 1 or 2 slot for the next 6, 7, 8 years. And there are certain guys that I'm willing for me. I mean, if you had a 3-round rookie draft last year, Martavis may not have even got drafted. I mean, he probably got drafted, but it would have been a lot deeper. So, and those NFL execs, they know more than we do. So that's what I keep coming back to. And then when you watch it's just 9 route after 9 route after 9 route. When you watch what he's doing, I haven't run the numbers on it, but I'm going to guess it's at least 25% of the time he's just running down the field. Like I said, and Drew was talking about being touchdown dependent. I don't chase touchdowns at wide receiver. I chase targets. That's the number I look at. How many targets are you getting? Because that's where I'm going to find consistent production. If a guy's going to go big boom, Deshaun Jackson, Mike Wallace, Martavis Bryant, those guys are great to have, on your team. But like I said, I'm more of a give me a volume receiver with big playability. That's where I want to be. So.
Yeah, I have to agree. And the thing with Martavis is he wasn't a top 100 pick. They don't have that much invested in him, and this is another deep wide receiver class. Pittsburgh could easily go out and draft another wide receiver. And what does that do to Bryant's value? It's going to torpedo it. They could bring in a guy who's more complete and have Bryant, he could be the complement now. And he's going to still have value to the NFL team. His value to them doesn't change at all. But to fantasy, it plummets. So it doesn't seem, to the front office, it's not an indictment of him at all. But he's not going to see the usage that we're going to want to see as fantasy owners. And so you have to be aware of those situations, too, where someone legitimately could come in and kind of end up replacing them in terms of targets.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, and just off the top of my head, thinking about Pittsburgh's wide receiver core, I would almost venture it's probable that they draft a wide receiver. Not necessarily a a DGB, Jaden Strong first round wide receiver, but maybe like just to nobody like that. Martavis, got Marcus Wheaton. Is Darius Hayward Bay still there?
Yeah, they re-signed him.
Why? I mean,
Uh,
I don't know. That's a whole nother topic. I mean, I think Justin Brown's still banging around in Pittsburgh. As a wide receiver reft of depth, there's just not much going on there. I wouldn't surprise if it was, to complement who's maybe the best in the game, and Antonio Brown.
yeah, and I think that hits up that question pretty damn well. Do you have any last parting shots for us this week?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to, and Drew had been hounding me to get on Twitter, get on Twitter, get on Twitter. And I had been lurking on Twitter for a while. I've been following the Adam Schefters and the Chris Mortensens of the world, and I just recently, in the last couple weeks, got there. I want to say thanks to everyone with whom I've been speaking for engaging me. I'm really enjoying getting in there and meeting some new guys, hearing all the different schools of thought. There are so many different ways to do things, and I will very rarely disagree 100% with something that somebody says. There's so many different viewpoints going out there, but it's been a real eye-opener for me. There's a community out there that I had no idea that the community was this big and had this many great minds involved and great writers and really just some cool guys. So I just say thanks for everyone for new. I realize that it is probably not up to snuff or pretty poor at times, but I'm working on it. I'll get there. So just want to throw that out there. Big thanks.
It's all right. I get to be rude and ignorant with you, so hashtag teamwork.
Fair enough. There you go.
But in addition to thanking everybody on Twitter that's been interacting with us, I want to thank everybody that's listened and recommended us to everyone that's given us feedback on the show. That you're the reason we do this show, and we really do appreciate it. If you continue to have any suggestions, any ideas for improvement, criticisms, bitches, moans, complaints, send them our way, please. We want to continue to improve our product, and it's kind of hard to see past the bias of this is our baby. So anything you can give us, even if it seems harsh, we can take it. My wife tells me meaner things every day than you guys could tell me about this show.
Yeah, we will not get butthurt. If you're trying to hurt our feelings, good luck. I lost feelings years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, that support us. Pat Swiney, Adam, Sticky. There are a lot of guys out there throwing the support our way, and we really, really appreciate it. And we have a blast with this, guys. We really do. It's so much fun, and it gives us an outlet to just say that are in our mind or do not want to hear. So we really, really appreciate the support. I can't say it enough how grateful we are.
Absolutely. And just once again, thank you. And we will see you again this next week. This has been the Dynasty Playbook, Dynasty FS dedicated podcast. I'm your host, Drew, and you can find me on Reddit at EAF Marine and on Twitter at Drew Dodson NFL. With me have been my co-hosts, Tyler and Scott. You can find Tyler on Reddit at Barrels and on Twitter at HBomb9508. You can find Scott on Reddit at Stewie35. Thanks for joining us. We hope to see you guys again next week.